Imagine a man who is considered by millions to be the greatest basketball player who ever lived. 6 NBA championships, 5 regular season MVP awards, 6 finals MVP awards. Millions of fans around the world. His name became a symbol of winning. Michael Jordan. But there is something people often forget. Before Jordan became a legend, he lost. He heard the word no. He experienced failure. He watched other players celebrate while he stood on the outside. And at one point, he faced a moment that could have convinced any young athlete of one simple thing: maybe I'm just not good enough. But Jordan made a different choice. He took every failure and turned it into fuel. And that's why the story of Michael Jordan isn't really a story about basketball. It's a story about what happens when a person refuses to let failure have the final word. Michael Jordan was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1963, but when he was still young, his family moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. That was where the story of the future legend really began. As a child, Michael wasn't some perfect athlete destined for greatness. He was just a competitive kid. He played with his brothers. He fought to win. He hated losing. And more than anything, he wanted to prove that he could be better. Competition wasn't just a game to him. It slowly became part of who he was. But then, something happened in high school that would become one of the most important moments of his life. Michael didn't make the varsity basketball team. For a teenager, that can feel devastating. You dream about stepping onto the court. You dream about playing with the best players in your school. And then someone tells you you're not ready yet. That could have been the end of the story. He could have blamed the coach. He could have gotten angry. He could have simply accepted it. Instead, he went back to the gym. He practiced again and again and again, shot after shot, day after day. He wasn't just trying to prove his coach wrong. He was trying to prove something to himself. I can become better. Over time, Michael grew, literally and mentally. His physical abilities began to separate him from other players. His speed, his coordination, his jumping ability. But something even more important was changing inside him. He was learning how to deal with failure. Every time he lost, he started asking a different question. Not, why did this happen to me? But, what do I need to change? That difference is enormous. Most people look at failure and ask, why did I lose? Jordan increasingly asked, what do I have to do to win next time? The first question searches for an explanation. The second searches for a solution. And that mindset began to change everything. Soon, Michael became a high school star, then a college star. And eventually, the entire country began to notice him. In 1982, Jordan and the University of North Carolina reached the NCAA championship game. The game was coming down to its final moments. The championship was on the line, and the ball found its way into the hands of a young Michael Jordan. He shot, he scored, and suddenly, the kid who once couldn't make his high school varsity team had become a national champion. But he had no idea yet that this was only the beginning. The NBA draft. A young player from the University of North Carolina was waiting to hear his name. Michael Jordan was selected 3rd overall. 2 players were chosen before him, Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. At the time, nobody could know just how historic that decision would become. Jordan arrived in Chicago. The Bulls were not yet a championship team. But almost immediately, something changed. The young rookie attacked the game with incredible energy. He scored. He defended. He flew toward the basket. He created moments that looked almost impossible. Very quickly, Michael Jordan became a star, but there was a problem. He still couldn't win a championship. And the better he became, the greater the expectations became. People no longer wanted spectacular plays. They wanted results. They wanted victories. They wanted a championship. And eventually, Jordan would discover the biggest obstacle of his early career: a team called the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons were known as the Bad Boys. They were physical, aggressive, relentless, and they understood exactly how dangerous Michael Jordan was. So they decided to make every possession painful. Every drive to the basket became a battle. Every Playoff series became a war. Jordan would attack the rim and defenders would hit him again and again. Chicago kept losing. Jordan kept getting knocked down year after year. The Pistons seemed like a wall that couldn't be broken. Jordan could have complained. He could have blamed the referees. He could have blamed his teammates. He could have said, "They're playing too physically." Instead, he did something very different. He went back to work. Because Jordan understood something. If strength was being used against him, then he needed to become stronger. His training changed. He became more serious about conditioning. He built strength. He improved his endurance. And most importantly, he became even more obsessed with preparation, because now he had a specific target. He had to break through the wall. Imagine losing to the same opponent over and over again. Every year, you tell yourself, maybe this is the year. And every year, you get knocked back. For most people, that kind of failure eventually becomes a reason to quit. For Jordan, it became a reason to change. He realized something simple. Talent wasn't enough. You could be the most talented player on the court, but if someone else was willing to work harder, eventually, they could catch you. So Jordan turned preparation into a habit. When other players were resting, he was training. When the season ended, he was already thinking about the next one. When he found a weakness, he worked on it. And slowly, everything began to change. The Bulls became stronger. Jordan became stronger. And the wall that once seemed impossible to break started to crack. Then came 1991. The Chicago Bulls faced the Detroit Pistons in the playoffs once again. But this time, something was different. Chicago swept Detroit. The wall was finally gone. Jordan had defeated the team that had stopped him for years. But there was one more obstacle. One final mountain. The NBA Finals. Chicago Bulls vs. Los Angeles Lakers. On one side was Magic Johnson, one of the greatest players of his generation. On the other, Michael Jordan, the player who had spent years hearing the same question, can he actually win a championship? Now, there was nowhere left to hide. The answer had to come on the court. The Bulls won the series. Michael Jordan was finally an NBA champion. And for a moment everything came together. The years of losing, the hours of training, the criticism, the doubt, the pain, all of it had led to this moment. Jordan finally held the trophy he had chased for so long. But the most important part wasn't the trophy. It was everything that had happened before it. Every failure had become part of the journey. Every loss had taught him something. Every obstacle had made him stronger. The boy who once couldn't make his high school varsity team was now standing on top of the basketball world. And this is where the story gets even more interesting. Because after winning his first championship, Jordan didn't say, "I've made it." He said, in effect, "Now I have to do it again." And he did. Then again and again. 3 championships in a row. But success brought something else with it. Pressure. When you're a known, people don't expect much from you. When you're a star, people expect you to perform. But when you're Michael Jordan, people expect you to win. Every game, every season, every playoff series. Once you become the best, people stop asking, "Can you win?" They start asking, "Why didn't you win?" That's a completely different kind of pressure. You're no longer chasing the champion. You are the champion. Everyone is chasing you. Everyone wants to prove that you're beatable. And Jordan didn't try to escape that pressure. He used it. But every legend has a price. As Jordan became more successful, his life changed. His face appeared on television. On magazine covers, on advertisements. Millions of people wanted to be like him. His name was no longer connected only to basketball. It had become a global symbol. But the higher you climb, the less room you have to make mistakes. An ordinary player can have a bad night. Star can have a bad game. But Michael Jordan was expected to be extraordinary. All the time. People saw the trophies. They saw the highlights. They saw the celebrations. But they didn't see every early morning workout. They didn't see every exhausted night. They didn't see every failure. They didn't see the countless moments when Jordan had to choose between comfort and improvement. That's the part of greatness people rarely see. The final victory is visible. The sacrifice that Created it usually isn't. In 1993, Michael Jordan shocked the world. He announced his retirement from basketball. For a while, he stepped away from the game, but eventually he returned, and returning wasn't enough. Now he had to prove that he could still be Michael Jordan. He had to rebuild his rhythm, his confidence, his dominance. And once again, he did it. The Bulls returned to the top. In 1996, Chicago won another championship, then another. By 1998, Jordan and the Bulls were fighting for their sixth championship. And in that finals came one of the most famous moments in sports history. The final seconds, the ball was in Jordan's hands. He moved, he stopped, he rose, he released the shot, and the ball went through the basket. 6 championships. 6 finals victories. And an era came to an end. But that final shot meant more than another championship. It represented the entire journey. The kid who had once been told he wasn't good enough was now ending his Bulls career with one of the most iconic shots in basketball history. But if you remove the advertisements, the fame, the money, the trophies, what remains? A man who learned how to use failure. And maybe that's why Jordan's story still resonates decades later. Because most of us will never play in the NBA. Most of us will never win a championship. Most of us will never become world-famous athletes. But every one of us knows what failure feels like. We know what rejection feels like. We know what it's like to fall short. To watch someone else achieve something we wanted. To wonder if we're simply not good enough. And when that happens, there are 2 choices. The first is to let failure become your identity. To say, I'm not talented enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. The second choice is different. You look at the failure and treat it as information. What went wrong? What can I change? What can I improve? What do I need to do tomorrow to become better than I was today? Jordan chose the second path. Michael Jordan's greatness was never just about his jump. It wasn't only about his shooting. It wasn't only about his 6 championships. Perhaps his greatest quality was much simpler. He refused to let failure write the ending of his story. Every loss became part of the next victory. Every mistake became a lesson. Every obstacle became another reason to get stronger. That's why, when people remember Michael Jordan today, they don't remember the kid who didn't make the varsity team. They remember the man who turned that rejection into motivation. They don't remember a player who never lost, because he did lose many times. They remember a player who refused to let losing define him. And maybe that's why his story goes far beyond basketball. Because every person eventually faces their own wall, their own Detroit, their own moment when moving forward seems impossible. And when that moment comes, there is only one question. Will you let that wall stop you, or will you find a way over it? Because sometimes, greatness doesn't begin with victory. Sometimes it begins with failure. And with the decision to try one more time.